Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I apologize that I only got one video out yesterday. The reason was that in the midst of all this mess going on, my refrigerator had gone out. I had to buy a refrigerator, get it replaced, and then I had to stock the refrigerator back up, go to the grocery store for like the 5th or 6th time in the last 2 weeks, and stock the refrigerator up to make sure that my boys have something to eat, because they are home with me now because of all of these current events going on that I can't say certain words about. And they're stuck here with me, so I wanted to make sure they had what they needed. And so we're all being affected by this right now. And the digital asset investor is no different. But I can tell you one thing. I have cinnamon in my coffee this morning, and it tastes good. Okay, let's start this off. First, let me pull a screen up here. Let's start this off with this I got from Michelle Vandenberg. This is a tweet that I think rings pretty true. Now, I don't know what words I'm allowed to say, like this word right here. I'm not going to say it because I don't know if that kind of word flags you here. So I'm not going to say that, but you can read. I think a lot of people don't understand that we are witnessing two major once-in-a-lifetime events simultaneously. A global you-know-what, the meltdown of fiat currency, and subsequently global bond markets, okay? Now, I was in the shower this morning, and my wife was asking me, who all is going to be affected by this kind of thing? Well, look, folks, you could just name just about any of your friends, and their livelihoods are completely shut down. So this is a big, big deal. Now, that part of it, and I've told you this in the past, before any of this happened, I've told you this in the past. I believe, unfortunately, this is the bad part of what I believe digital assets represent. I believe that the people that did not know about digital assets are going to suffer, and suffer greatly. I think we're all going to suffer in the short term, in the transition period of this. But I believe that those who discovered the right digital assets before this all occurred, and even right now, I mean, like Glenn Hutchins said, the prices are a distraction. If we see a transition to, or what's been called a new world order, an order where digital assets are reserve currencies and things like that, then you will see the tiny percentage of us who were here and paid attention and looked at what was going on. Those people, their lives will be changed for the better. But unfortunately, a lot of the people, the same ones that laughed at us for the last few years, those same people will be the ones that are in a lot of financial pain and otherwise. And I believe that probably is going to be a natural part of this, that a lot of those people will become slaves to the system. Now, let's move along. I want to show you this. Now, this is from David Valeris, okay, Cryptopolis. And he did this coil blog that all of you need to go read. Okay, I'm going to read you an excerpt from it, but you need to read the first part to tie it to the second part. The second part is the part that really is eye-opening. And you need to understand that Cryptopolis is a very experienced guy in markets. He's very smart, has done very well for himself, and this guy knows what he's talking about. And I'm going to read you the second part of this, but it's called XRP, the Inflation Playbook, and the New World Order. The first part of this, he explains to you how he believes we're going into a deflationary potential depression. But then he says in this article that at some point it flips into inflation, possibly hyperinflation. I want to read this part to you. He says, you see, hyperinflation is also part of the playbook. They need it in order to introduce the new economy and what some people refer to as the New World Order. The New World Order is a reset of the inflation plan that has worked well over the last 100 years, but has run amok. Essentially, the NWO is a planned obsolescence of current inflationary monetary policy by central banks, we've talked on this channel. This is me talking. We've talked on this channel about what a joke all of this money printing and all is. They knew it had to end. Now I'm picking back up with Cryptopolis's blog here. The NWO will be introduced as a way to stabilize prices, tame runaway inflation and high interest rates, and create a level playing field for every person in every country. The lofty goals of this reset of the financial system is more equality and inclusiveness in the financial system, especially for the unbanked. We're not there yet, but it's coming, and XRP will be the key that opens the door to this new world order and the reset that must happen once inflation goes into hyperdrive. In order to prepare for this NWO reset, watch for a rise in commodities after deflation period and massive final printing of stimulus. The rise in prices will be led by gold, silver, and of course digital assets, a different form of commodity. I think we are a year maybe away from that happening, but due to the extreme rapidity at which the economy froze in 2020, it may happen sooner. Hard to say. I'm watching the CRB index and interest rates for clues when the deflationary period ends and the hyperinflation period begins. Riding the last final wave of inflation will make many people very, very rich, and digital assets will be the preferred asset of the wealthy because it is free from eroding purchasing power of the US dollar. Like I said, though that's likely years away, in the meantime, we have deflation to deal with. So for now, cash is king. To raise cash, there are plenty of things you can do, including selling stuff you need on eBay, etc. Starting at a low-cost biz, selling at Etsy, outsourcing your skills to other companies, taking on work to do at home, writing a book, teaching Chinese students English, remotely, of course. And yes, it pays well if you don't mind the hours, which are typically convenient for your student, but not for you. And really anything you can do to trade your time and things you don't need into cash. Then get ready for the next phase of hyperinflation. Then XRP, New World Order, and the final financial reset, don't miss it. I know these times are difficult, but there are things you can do right now to prepare, survive, and thrive as the events, as I described above, unfold. Stay strong, be safe, and hodl XRP. What a great blog. Good job to Cryptopolis. Such a smart guy. All right, now I want you to see this. I tweeted this. This is Julia Chatterley. I want to give a shout out to Julia Chatterley. To me, this lady is one of the smartest. She's a financial news reporter, I guess you would say. She's one of the smartest people. She gets it. She's interviewed Brad Garlinghouse twice. She's interviewed the MoneyGram CEO once. She's all over this digital asset classic because she knows what's going on. She smells what's in the water. I'm just telling you, she knows. I've been watching her tweets the last couple of days, and it gets really interesting. She said, this is a tweet that she did. Let me play her tweet first. She said, time to write checks. And I'm going to play from the 3-minute mark. Listen to this.
Bill, I just want to say, and you raised a critically important point about the fact that more fiscal policy, more government policy is required. We did see Congress acting over the weekend, but the fear here is among the 57 million working Americans, 20 million people will be exempt from the measures that they passed over the weekend. It's good, it's something, but it's not enough. Do you want to see more from governments too?
I think there needs to be quite a bit more.
What more do you need to see, do you want to see here? Because even Jay Powell said in the press conference last night, we can't support small businesses, we can't support individual workers.
You have to distinguish between a liquidity crisis and a fiscal problem. And what we have here is mostly a fiscal problem. So I think the government needs to think about bringing forth resources to small businesses and households to help them get over the hump of what's going to be a disruption to their income flow over the next several months.
Are you in favor of a payroll tax cut? We need to forget about the cost and just take action short term.
I think a payroll tax cut is certainly one thing that could be contemplated, but I think probably even better is just to send money to people, put checks out in the mail so every family in the United States gets a check to support them over the next couple of months. Because the problem with the payroll tax cuts is it unfolds relatively slowly. And it's also, target. It's not if you're a higher income, you're going to get a bigger tax cut. That doesn't seem very fair. So I think he'd want something that's basically to support low and moderate income households that don't have much savings. For them, this is really going to be a very serious time.
Yeah, and there's growing consensus for that on the Conservatives and on the Liberal side among economists to simply send checks out. Bill Dudley, former president.
Now, so they're talking about in 2020 writing checks and mailing them to people. And so I commented on this. We've heard Brad Garlinghouse many times use the example of how much faster it is to fly a suitcase of money rather than to wire it via banks. The same thing applies here. Why are we mailing checks in 2020 when $1,000 could be airdropped to the cell phones of the population? Now, I'm going to say it here, folks. Remember, BACT, which represents Wall Street as far as digital assets go, BACT announced, we covered it a month or two ago, that they're going to come out with their app, the BACT app. If you don't think, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but listen, don't be surprised if you don't see an app that's like a government-sponsored app of some sort, whether it's through a Coinbase or a BACT or someone where money could be distributed to the population via an app on cell phones. Don't think that's an impossibility. And you'll remember that I said it if you do see it. But BACT, it just so happens BACT is going to have this app that you can use to, and they were very specific. You can use to receive and send digital assets as well as spend with it. Okay, don't be surprised if you see something like that. Now that we're talking about right now financial crisis, I wanted to take you back because I believe, this time I believe that the politicians and the powers that be are smarter than they were last time. I think they know how they got burned last time and what it looked like bailing themselves out. And this time, I think you're already seeing indications of it being different. A bailout where it was distributed to the population instead of being handed to banks. I think that you could see something like that. They're already talking about it because and it's important, especially for you young people, you need to understand what they did last time. It was criminal, folks, what they did last time. Jim Rickards, in this clip I'm about to play for you, it tells you exactly what they did last time. Listen up.
Meanwhile, they are smart enough to know what we're describing, which is that this is going to happen again. They can see it coming. They don't actually understand why, but they know that nothing got fixed in 2008. One way to think about this, Brian, is that the dynamics and the mathematics of a financial panic are exactly the same as the collapse of any complex system anywhere in the natural world. So earthquakes, volcanoes, forest fires, various phenomena, avalanches of this kind, they're not just metaphors. I mean, I use them as metaphors in writing, but they're not just metaphors. The dynamics are identical, but with one difference, which is in a man-made system, you can truncate it with policy. In a natural system, you cannot. So when an earthquake starts, what's an earthquake? An earthquake is a release of energy. That's how you define and measure an earthquake. When an earthquake starts, you can't stop it. Like you can't stop an earthquake in the middle and say, time out. But if you could, imagine if you could, what would happen? That energy would be unreleased, but it would still be there. The pressure would be there building up. It just didn't get released that time. Now bring that over to the man-made systems. There, when the earthquake starts, when the release of energy starts, you can truncate it. So you have dominoes falling, boom, 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 boom. You know that the last one's going to fall unless they drop a steel wall between two dominoes. Now the domino hits when the next one doesn't fall. That's what they did in September of 2008. Right. They dropped a steel wall between Lehman Brothers and Morgan Stanley didn't fail, but because they guaranteed every bank deposit, money market fund, and currency swap in the world.
When they should have let it fail, or nature would have let it fail?
Well, they should have let it fail. Now, I don't think we should have allowed ourselves to go into something worse than the Great Depression. There was a solution on the table that they never pursued because of cronyism. See, now we're getting into the gangster side of it, the cronyism side. So what they should have done, by executive order, and the legal authority was there, they could have nationalized all the big banks. Not permanently, because I'm not in favor of socialism, but temporarily nationalize them.
And cleaned them up.
What you do is you wipe out the equity. First of all, you rip out the bad assets, and you put them over here in trust for the American people. So it might take 20 years to sell them, but whenever we sell them, that money goes to you, the taxpayers. Over here, we now have a clean bank. Equity, you're wiped out. Bondholders, how big's the hole in the balance sheet? 20% haircut, 40% haircut, whatever it takes. Preferred stock, you're probably wiped out. Put the losses where they should be. Put the losses on the people who deserve it, which are the stakeholders in the institution. So now you get rid of the bad assets, you wipe out the equity, you now IPO a clean bank to raise new equity, and you start over with Citibank and Goldman, all these guys private, with new owners and clean balance sheets, and we can get the economy moving again.
Okay.
That is not what happened. What did they do? They took the TARP money. By the way, TARP was the greatest bait and switch in history because Hank Paulson, our Secretary of the Treasury, went to the Congress and said, I want this money so I can buy the bad assets from the banks. I want to strip out the bad assets. It's not what he did. He took the money and gave it to the banks as capital, and they kept the bad assets, which meant that when they recovered, the bankers got the profits, not the people. So this was cronyism at its worst. Nobody went to jail. None of the big banks failed, other than Bear Stearns.
Right.
So the big banks didn't.
He was
fail.
ex-banker. Was he
Sorry.
Paulson was ex-banker, right?
Goldman.
Yeah, Goldman.
Yeah. So they bailed out their buddies. All these guys kept their jobs. They kept their phony baloney jobs. They got their $1 million bonuses. Their stock price came back. When things recovered, the profit didn't go to the taxpayers where it should have. It went to the banks. Everything about this was corrupt. But they could have done this nationalized, clean up, re-IPO, privatize, and kind of move on with a clean bank.
Okay, so that was the other option.
That was the other option.
Right. So I think it's important with what's going on now that you see what happened before, because you know what they say about history. If you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. So I believe politicians learned several things. The first thing I believe is that the politicians set in motion, or the powers that be, had been working on digital currencies, and I believe it hit the accelerator on that. But also, I believe that they said the next time this happens, we have to do it in such a way that it looks like we're helping the people instead of just hoarding everything for ourselves. Perception is reality. So I believe that they'll do it a different way, and in a different way, at least for the perception of things. Cryptopolis tweeted this out: regulators considering more changes to free up bank liquidity, and sources say. Now, there's a couple of things that were going around yesterday. This is from Cryptopolis. This is the Cryptopolis show today. But where the OCC observes unscheduled closings, which are typically the result unpredictable events, equity underlying exchanges may be unavailable. OCC is issuing this guide to inform external stakeholders in the event of unscheduled closing. And this is an actual guide that the OCC put out. Now, who is the OCC? OCC, founded in 1973, is the world's largest equity derivatives clearing organization. We are dedicated to promoting stability and financial integrity in the marketplaces that we serve by focusing on sound risk management principles. By acting as guarantor, we ensure that the obligations of the contracts we clear are fulfilled. And then here's another indication. I'm not going to play this video because they say a couple of words in here that might get flagged on this channel, but the gist of what they say is this: a coordinated shutdown of the world's financial markets. You have been warned. He summed it up perfectly. And that is what could very well happen here shortly. So that's something to think about. All right. Now, I Am Legion had a pretty good little thread here. He says, most people think it's absolutely insane the amount that's being pumped into repo plus bailouts. But think about it. If you knew that within 10 years everything is tokenized and becoming liquid, and this is a question my father brought up to me on the phone this morning, actually, the official father of the Digital Asset Investor channel. He said, do you think that Trump and all these guys are doing all this? They're just going overboard with all this money printing because they know a reset's coming, and they're just kind of like, we can do this because there's going to be a reset. That's kind of the point I think I Am Legion is making. He says, think about it. If you knew that within 10 years everything is tokenized and becoming liquid, real estate, $217 trillion, gold, $7.7 trillion, global debt, $215 trillion. Could this be the reason they don't care about adding 1 to 20 trillion to the debt? First, we wanted to be millionaires, then billionaires, trillionaires, next quadrupillionaires. We just haven't adjusted to bigger numbers yet, but we will in the new world order of crypto assets. Until then, buy cheap. I think I Am Legion is one of the people who has been 10,000% correct on this thing from the very beginning. I pay close attention to the things, to the words that he uses and what he says, and you should too. All right. Okay. Maybe I doubled up on his tweet. It was that good. Okay. Mike Preston sent me this. Closed door. This is from yesterday from Savvy XRP. Closed door Fed meeting going on right now. Monetary policy. The meeting has a name. Government in the Sunshine Meeting. How about that? That's pretty strange. And there's a link here to it. Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Government in the Sunshine Meeting notice. I mean, what in the world could that mean? That sounds like some weird code words or something. We'll see. And then this is Julia Chatterley again. And I said things that make you go, and she actually winked at me after I tweeted this. So like I said, I think this lady's on it. She had tweeted this out. Such an important point. This crisis will sadly, hopefully help fuel the rise of digitization and global payments. The U.S. is way behind other parts of the world, including UK, SE, Asia, China. And she's retweeting this. Way too many stores, gas and other similar businesses still require people to sign a receipt, which means sharing a PIN. Signatures are often illegible anyway. Can credit card cost drop this requirement so that more payments can be contactless? Do you see what's happening, folks? Do you see the mental shift that's going on? Okay, now I want to show you something. I've been looking around because I believe that at the core of everything that's happening right now are these world organizations, the IMF, the World Bank. There are so many of them, and they're all tied together. These are the people who have been behind from day one wanting this new world order, okay, and which involves a basket of SDRs and world reserve currency, different currencies in the basket. I believe XRP will be one of them. Now, another organization is the IIF, and I'll show you who that is after I play this video. This video is from October 21st of 2019, and it's a lady talking about the IIF annual meeting, which had just taken place. Listen up.
Third story here, which is you worked all weekend over in D.C. at the IIF highlight. And when we asked you what the highlight was, we wanted to talk about it. You said the New World Order. What does that mean?
I think we're sitting there with, there's a lot of banking executives, central bankers. It was the IIF, Institute of International Finance, so it's a sister of the IMF. You would think banking executives would be talking about performance or deals or anything, but it's not really like that there. They were talking about whether the U.S. can retain its dominance and what its relationship would be like with China moving forward. So when I'd spoken with Larry Summers, for example, he had said that the erratic behavior of the U.S. is something that could risk the U.S.'s credibility. And when the IIF president had asked a bunch of leaders, such as Axel Weber, the UBS chairman, former president of the Bundesbank, whether the U.S. and China would be able to fix their relationships, you literally saw Glenn Hubbard laughing. Absolutely, like they were so negative.
That much.
Exactly,
straightforward. So.
I'm like, this is what's funny. It's so depressing.
Right. So did you get any sense of how bankers, how the international community then is are dealing with that and sort of how then they go do business?
Something I thought was interesting was a lot of the embassies were actually having parties on Thursday and Friday night. And a lot of the bankers were actually at the parties at the different embassies. And so you do see people trying to get a handle globally about how all of these tensions are going to impact deal flow, economic activity, and so they're placing their bets where they can see the most payoff from.
Did you go to an embassy party?
I was not allowed at the embassy parties.
Okay. And when we asked you what the highlight was, we wanted
Let's go back to this.
Deals or anything, but it's not really.
I want you to hear this name she throws out.
Like that there. They were talking about whether the U.S. can retain its dominance and what its relationship would be like with China moving forward. So when I'd spoken with Larry Summers, for example, he had said that the erratic behavior of the U.S. is something that could risk the U.S.'s credibility. And when
So Larry Summers, and they're talking about basically the U.S. risking not being able to be the world reserve currency. And do you remember who Larry Summers is? Yes, that would be the same Larry Summers who's the board advisor at the Digital Currency Group, which owns a piece of almost every major company in the digital asset space, including Ripple, Coinbase, and I believe just about every other major one. Okay, so Larry Summers, who's also been referred to as a globalist by people like Jim Rickards. Now, let's find out who is this Institute of International Finance. Now, the first thing I'm going to show you is the board. Let's look at their board. The board, there's a name here you'll recognize, and I wanted to show to you. Anna Boden. That would be the same Anna Boden who is more excited about Ripple and their technology than just about anybody that I've seen from the Santander banking group. All right, so now let's go and look at the About Us. I want you to watch the video. Now, remember, we were just told that this group, these people, they're basically talking, the theme of their meeting is the New World Order, okay? The New World Order, where the U.S. is not the dominant world reserve currency anymore. There's another, right? And listen to what, more importantly, look at some of the people in this video and see if you recognize any people that we've been talking about for the last year and a half on this channel. Also, before we get going, I want you to be thinking while you watch this, what this scene of the globe and all this interconnected globe reminds you of while you're watching this video.
In the face of sweeping change in the industry, we have built stronger, more resilient institutions. We have adapted to a new regulatory landscape and enhanced risk management and governance practices. But we still face headwinds, a period of high debt and subdued growth, low returns, and heightened uncertainty in an increasingly interconnected financial system. As risks evolve, the financial industry is rising to meet these challenges by embracing innovation and finding new opportunities to harness the power of technology to meet the needs of households and businesses worldwide. The IIF and its members are at the center of this rapidly evolving landscape, working to chart a new course to ensure growth, job creation, and financial stability. Together, we are making sense of an increasingly complex world.
I don't know if you caught that one part in there, but there's one part in that video where there was like it looked like they were showing a computer screen, and it talked about the blocks. It looked like they were showing you blockchain. Okay, now this is what I'm about to show you is very interesting. And before I show it to you, I want to go back and show you who are the players. Now this is from the IMF. Who are the players? This is the IMF High Level Advisory Group. And I'm here to tell you that the big players in digital assets, I'll name them for you, that are in this list. These are the members of the high-level advisory group. The big players are Jeremy Allaire from Circle. Now, Circle, remember, is partially owned by Goldman Sachs, right? All right, and these are going to be the big players in this new world order, okay? As far as the digital asset portion of this, Chris Larson, Chairman Ripple, okay? Blythe Masters, board member, Digital Asset Holdings, which is also owned by Goldman Sachs. And then let me see if there's any other ones that I wanted to make sure that I brought up. A lot of these people, all these people are important. I'm just trying to highlight some of the ones that are from FinTech that you need to be aware of. Those are the three core ones are Digital Asset Group, Circle, and Ripple, okay? Now, I want you to listen to this. This is about a 6 or 7 minute clip where Jeremy Allaire is talking, and Christine Lagarde is on stage. Jeremy Allaire is talking, and he lays out for you what all this means and what is going to happen. And he doesn't say this is going to happen 5 years from now. He says, I think he said in the next 14 to 18 months or 12 to 18 months, something like that. You'll hear it. So listen closely. This starts, let's see, at the 33. About 33:30 is where this starts. All right, here we go. If I can get it to play. I had to reload this page. Let me refresh this page and then maybe it'll work. Okay, let's go to the 33, right in here.
Make it much, much easier for customers to take their money out of banks and put it on their wallet, right? It's just a click on your mobile phone. So it may make runs on banks more easier and faster. And that's an issue of financial stability. And so we need to think harder with you, with the fund, with the BIS, about the kind of world this would be and how to make it safer.
You used the words repeatedly, which I think is really important, and I'd like you, Jeremy, and you, Patrick, to react to that. Trust.
Trust.
Jeremy, why do customers eventually trust Circle?
Sure. It's not so much about trusting Circle. It's about trusting the internet. And so, I think a really important thing here is to sort of step back. And I think we all live in this world now where we trust that we can instantly access all the world's knowledge within seconds, instantly. There's no corporation that runs the internet. There's no centralized company that controls who can put content on and off that network. We all value the freedom of being able to connect, transmit information, connect to other people in this very open global system. We trust the incredible utility of that open network, and we rely on that greatly. Now, there are companies that build services and value on top of it, of course, but fundamentally that open network, it delivers just an incredible amount of utility value for people, and that's what they ultimately trust. They trust things that do more for them. And I think in this realm of money, we're looking at a very similar situation. It's hard for people to grasp a world where they could, first of all, control their own assets, rather than have to entirely rely on an intermediary like a bank, and where they can transact with any other person on the planet instantly with zero counterparty risk, and they can do that at virtually no cost. I think people, if they experience that, they wouldn't want to go back from that world. And likewise, so it's trust in the network. We trust the World Wide Web. We trust internet email. We trust messaging. No government controls those, no corporation controls those. Those are decentralized networks of open source technologies that creative engineers are building and implementing and scaling. And we all trust in that public infrastructure. And that's what we're interested in with the future of digital money. We'd like to see public infrastructure that everyone can equally plug into from any corner of the world with any device and transact. That's transacting for a transaction in a market, or it's transacting as part of a supply chain, et cetera. The classic centralized clearing and settlement systems, whether they're administered by a central bank or administered in a public-private system or entirely by a centralized commercial operator, we think will go the way that those things have gone in the world of media and communications and retail. We'll see much more decentralized systems, actors being able to participate directly, and consumers and businesses are not going to want to look back because it's going to be a radically superior set of utility for them and deeper economic integration than they had before. So I think it's hard for people to see past the status quo of, the ECB runs the payment systems of the Eurozone, and JP Morgan kind of does JP Morgan coin and US dollar networks, and those are incredible and significant and powerful systems. But an open internet model, I think, will ultimately be felt by the end users as a superior model, and that's what people are going to trust.
So that would be a step later. Do you see sort of a fragmentation of networks and sometimes regional operations that would eventually move up to a wider
Sure. I mean, there have to be standards, right? So the World Wide Web doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's a standards body, the World Wide Web Consortium. It defines the technology. It makes it all work. Lots of brilliant computer scientists, industry members, even government, academics contribute to that. It's a pool of open intellectual property. So we need the equivalent in this space as well. And so that needs government supervisors, that needs commercial banks, that needs technology companies. It needs a lot of collaboration there. But the end goal needs to look more like the open internet than certainly what we have today.
But so it would be the governance of a public good that is available to all.
That's right. And in our view, that ultimately, because digital currencies are inherently global. They exist anywhere the internet exists instantly. I mean, it's sort of uncontrollable unless you're a regime that wants to have a extremely strict, lockdown internet, which maybe there'll be more of depending on the way things go politically. But I think, that is just, it's inherently global, and that will certainly create challenges for countries that don't have reserve currency status, because everyone's going to want to use reserve currencies, and they're all going to have access to them instantly at zero cost. So if I'm in Argentina, I'm going to want to use US dollar coin, and I'm going to want to carry that around, and no one will be able to stop me, very likely. And so that will create, I think, challenges for governments, ultimately in their treasuries as well. But those are longer term challenges. But I think that is very clearly where it's headed. And even what we see in the recent news this week, Facebook raising billions of dollars to launch a basket global digital reserve currency that is a stable coin that can be used by billions of people around the world to transact directly over the internet. We're not talking about like far off science fiction. We're talking about later this year. So I think these are things that are coming faster than people realize, and they're happening by technology companies and by open source communities, not necessarily from central banks and large commercial banks.
Interesting. So it's digital SDR coming
I think
up.
that's right. I think that's technically possible and functional in the world in the next 12 to 24 months.
So a digital, she says, and she's playing dumb over there, a digital SDR in the next 12 to 24 months. They said it right there, plain as day, right there on stage. And as I showed you, the players are Jeremy Allaire, players are Chris Larson and Blythe Masters Digital Asset Group. These are the core fintech players. But to me, that last clip is worth you hearing again several times. Let's listen to it again, where she plays dumb. So in fact, I'm going to write that down while I do this, because I'm going to put it in the title. A digital asset SDR.
Zero cost. So if I'm in Argentina, I'm going to want to use US dollar coin, and I'm going to want to carry that around, and no one will be able to stop me, very likely. And so that will create, I think, challenges for governments, ultimately in their treasuries as well. But those are longer term challenges. But I think that is very clearly where it's headed. And even what we see in the recent news this week, Facebook raising billions of dollars to launch a basket global digital reserve currency that is a stable coin that can be used by billions of people around the world to transact directly over the internet. We're not talking about like far off science fiction. We're talking about later this year. So I think these are things that are coming faster than people realize, and they're happening by technology companies and by open source communities, not necessarily from central banks and large commercial banks.
Interesting.
Now listen really close here again. They've been planning this for a long time. Now, I also want to point out, he said 12 to 24 months. This was from April 10th of 2019. So what he really means is in the next 12 months. Okay? Listen up.
So it's digital SDR coming
I think
up.
that's right. I think that's technically possible and functional in the world in the next 12 to 24 months.
Digital SDR coming up. and now he says it's coming in the next 12 to 24 months. She's posing it as a question to him, but she's the one that would be making an SDR happen if there was going to be a digital SDR. So it's kind of like, what are you playing dumb for? Because she has to play dumb. All right, and the other thing he talked about in that is that it has to be open source, and he mentioned the World Wide Web Consortium. Well, people in the XRP community like Mickey B. Fresh have been talking about this for a long time. Forget about these regulations about Litecoin network payments. It all doesn't matter, because ILP has been the chosen protocol to underpin the new financial system. W3C is the World Wide Web Consortium, folks, that he just talked about. Federal Reserve, Ripple, 300 plus contributors. We've been working on fine-tuning the rules and governance of ILP since 2014. A future work, this is from the World Wide Web Consortium right here. Future work, integration of U.S. Federal Reserve faster payments use cases. And then they've got this, he's got checkmark. Ripple Labs is right here. Okay. It's got, there's also, I believe I saw, yeah. Okay. So Ripple Labs is right here. critical to global commerce, open access, and interoperability to financial systems for all the people to use the web. And then he's got this. Payment scheme sets rules and technical standards for execution of payment transactions that have followed by adhering entities. Ripple is listed as one of the adhering entities. And then he's got this. Ripple, web payments, WG participants, Ripple. Ripple's all over it. They've been all over it since the beginning. This is what we're talking about. Back to our Internet of Value timeline. Ripple becomes the standard for international money transfers between banks. ILP becomes the standard protocol. By 2020, this happens, folks, and that's when it all goes in motion. And then there's this from Curtis. This is one of the guys from SPQR, I believe. Predictions. XRP becomes the global reserve currency, removing the U.S. petrodollar status. Ripple's 55 billion XRP escrow, or a large percentage, will be signed over to the IMF World Bank. XRP becomes the global standard for exchange of value via the IOV Web 3.0 W3C. Folks, I'm going to end this video by reminding you that Ledger is running they got 2,048 chances to get a discount right now. You can, they've got all these keywords. It's, let me see what the thing says here. It says you can get 2,048 possibilities of getting a 20 or 25% discount. There's a link in the description of every video I do where you can go and try to get one of these discounts that they've got available. This is the way to go, folks. Go and take advantage of it now. It's the safest way to store your digital assets and have your private keys in your possession. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that the New World Order involves the ILP and in turn involves XRP. You just got to deal with it, folks. Thank you for listening.